Hello, this is Daniel from soundheadquarters.com. In today's video, we are doing pendulum painting on these 3 acoustic panels and installing them in the rear wall of the studio build. The client wanted to add some art to the rear wall, but also wanted to maintain the functionality of the acoustic panels to get the absorption that they need. So we decided to do some pendulum painting on these 3 acoustic panels here. So these are existing panels that the client already had from a previous build, but we're going to be reupholstering them in this green canvas fabric to match the rest of the studio build. Please check out the rest of the videos on the channel to see all the other processes of this studio build. We did the mixed position walls, we did the clouds, we did the vocal booth, we did this part. So lots of really cool videos on the channel for you guys to check out, but today we are focusing on these 3 panels and the pendulum painting. So I'm going ahead and getting all 3 of these panels upholstered, and once they're upholstered I can go ahead and get an anchor placed in the ceiling right there, so that way we can hang a bucket of paint and swing it around our acoustic panels. So I'm using my laser level there to shoot a laser up to the ceiling. I removed one of those clouds down so that we can install this anchor and this rope. Now this is literally just from the dollar store. We just got some rope and a kid's bucket that we're gonna poke a hole in, and we're gonna put the paint in there and just let the paint flow through the bottom of the bucket and swing it to make a cool pattern on these panels. So we're just doing some test swings right now. What I did was I installed a drywall anchor in the ceiling. I installed a eyelet hook in the ceiling as well. And then I just tied that rope to it. I just tied a knot to it up in the ceiling there, and then just tied another knot around that bucket. So what I'm doing right now is I'm laying out the panels in the exact orientation and spacing that they're going to be mounted on the walls. So I measure that out, that way we can get the pendulum painting to have the exact effect where all of the lines line up the same way when the panels are mounted on the wall. So I believe we made these gaps about 5 inches from each other, and then I made sure that my bucket and my anchor in the ceiling was right in the center of that first panel. So we watered down the paint, we made sure that the flow was good, and then now it's just about letting it swing and just letting the pendulum painting do its thing. So I did a bunch of practice swings to make sure I didn't hit the wall, and when I let this go here, it was so close, as you guys can see from hitting that front wall and the rear wall there. We kind of only really had one shot of making this happen because we didn't have any more fabric to reupholster these if we messed up. So I got super lucky, I'll admit it, by clearing the wall by, I mean, a centimeter, if that. But now that the pendulum is going, we can just kind of let it swing and just create a pattern. And whenever the client says that he wants me to finish it, then I can just put a paint tray underneath the bucket to make sure that the paint stops falling onto the panels. And then that's done. And then all we have to do is just let the paint dry before we mount those panels. So I'm just gonna let you guys enjoy the mesmerizing pattern here of this dollar store paint bucket swinging back and forth, creating a really cool pattern on these 3 acoustic panels. And you can see how we spaced it out there with that same gap that it's gonna be when it's mounted on the wall. That way the pattern, even though it's across 3 different panels and there is an air gap, the pattern is completely complete and it continues even with those gaps there. So this is pretty close to being the final pattern. Once the bucket kind of loses most of its momentum, it makes the pattern a lot tighter. So the lines are getting much closer together, and we're getting sort of a cool kind of density right in that center panel, almost making like a galaxy or like linear lines of a globe kind of pattern. So the client said right about here that he was happy with how it looks. So I'm just getting the paint tray ready, and then I can just go right underneath that bucket, stop the paint from flowing, and that's it. So there's our finished pattern. Turned out super cool. Couldn't be more happy with how this turned out, to be honest. I was kind of apprehensive because if I did mess it up, it would be my responsibility to fix it and to go get more fabric and all of that stuff, but worked out perfect. So we're going ahead and getting these French cleats installed into the wall. I'm using my laser level on top of the vocal booth there just to get everything at the height that we want. And I'm using the laser to make sure everything's level. Then I can reinstall that cloud where I had to take it down to install the anchor on the ceiling. So this is the finished look. once we had those rear 3 panels mounted. Super cool look, and it looks even better once the room is staged, which you'll see here in a second. Now that the studio is totally complete, you can see those mixed position walls with the wood slats and the integrated lighting that we did. You can see some of the clouds that we did in the previous video. And here you can see all the furniture and the plants, everything's in the studio space. Really ties the room together without being kind of a loud art piece. It's really subtle, but it really ties in all the colors of the studio together. It's the same paint that they use to paint the trim around those acoustic walls in the mixed position, as well as the same color as the vocal booth there and the ceiling. It's just a kind of subtle way to introduce some really cool art piece into the rear side of the studio with it maintaining its functionality. So thank you so much for watching. This has been Daniel from soundheadquarters.com. Peace out.